Over my years as a realtor in Waterloo region, I've had the pleasure of meeting plenty of successful person. Here are some of their stories. Welcome to People Around Town. So, welcome back to People Around Town. I have Jim Steffler with Dominion Lending Centers National. Good to have you in, Jim.
It's good to be here. I feel incredibly intelligent in this space, actually. I feel very good. Yeah.
Learned even.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I are going to learn some things today. I'm very excited about this.
Actually, I'm interviewing you, so it's really, I don't think it's going to go down like that.
Right.
I'm looking for you to give me sort of those key components and nuances, so then people ask me their mortgage questions, and it's a perfect lead in to say I know a little bit, but I know a guy that knows a lot of it, and that is you. So
that works.
Jim Steffler, let's get into it. So
sure.
Before you got into the mortgage game, like you're a local boy, Blue Vale, correct?
Yes, Blue Vale, yeah.
Awesome. So before you got into that, what did you do? What was your business gig?
Oh, well, I was a district manager for Future Shop.
Future Shop.
Future Shop, yeah. I started with Future Shop when I was 20 years old. Made more money than I ever thought. People make good money. Just to be clear, like Future Shop back in the day.
So you were selling on the floor back then.
It was good cash. It was me. There was half a dozen realtors, which they'll remain nameless, but they're in your industry.
Okay.
We sold TVs, pumped TVs out, and I remember my first real shift. I remember it very well. I made $330.
Ooh.
Which, like in the year 2000, that was
real money.
That was real money. Like that was more money than I'd ever made part time. I remember calling my mom and I'm like, I think sales is for me. $330, and amazing. So that's how it started, and then kind of worked my way up from there. Right?
Up the ladder.
Yeah,
okay.
like assistant manager.
So they brought you into assistant manager, district manager, so district sales manager then?
Yeah. Well, I was not cast properly, that's for sure. I was a district operations manager.
Okay.
Which is fine, but I should have always been district sales. Like sales is my thing.
Gotcha.
But they need to promote me, so operations it was.
All right. So you did that with other realtors that are welcome to comment below if you want to. Say I was one of those said realtors. I learned everything from Jim Steffler here.
Well, they did, yeah.
Yeah.
They did.
Okay. So what was the straw that broke the camel's back? Why did you switch?
Well, the straw more or less broke my back. That was the issue. I knew. If you remember, Best Buy took over Future Shop.
Right.
And I remember telling my wife that night, I'm like, it's a matter of time before I'm no longer around.
Right.
I'm brought in more as a transitional player. I felt like a lot of the folks. It was really like starting at a new company. Future Shop went away. Best Buy. They brought me on to Best Buy. They got rid of almost everybody I knew, which I was friends with.
Right.
And I knew it was a matter of time, right? The people I'd fought, Future Shop versus Best Buy, right? I used to fight with them.
Yeah.
Those same people were now my bosses and my peers and everything else. And by the way, I'll say, I had a great time working for Best Buy. Best Buy was great. Mm-hmm. But I told my wife, I said, it's a matter of time. I thought I'd last 6 months. I'd last 3 years.
Yeah.
And then one day that was the end of the Best Buy career. And I knew right away what I was going to get into, and I jumped into mortgage brokerage.
Okay, so if you knew what you're going to get into right away, were you taking your courses when the writing was on the wall, or what made you choose mortgages versus being a realtor like myself?
Yeah, great question. So kind of two reasons brought me into mortgages. I had a buddy at Future Shop, which had left the industry and jumped into mortgages, and he was loving life. Like, he was making good money, he was doing all those things. He had a cool car. I'm like, all right, life looks all right on your side. And then we had another manager, which I had worked with, which just left and was working with him and was loving it as a mortgage agent. And then this might strike you as kind of funny, but my own personal mortgage broker, I'd kind of seen the evolution throughout the years.
Okay.
At first I'd go to his office, everything was great. Did my mortgage multiple times. And then by the last time, like, he had horses on the wall. And I've always been like... When you're buying a horse, you're like, I'm just out of shit to buy. Like, I got a nice car, I got a nice house. Like, I'm just like, I'm gonna buy an animal.
I'm gonna buy something that loses money
and race it. Like that's where your life is gone. Yeah. And I remember seeing the horse when we renewed our mortgage. I'm like, this might be a viable career. Yeah. So when I got let go. That I knew what I was going to become, and I chatted with a couple. I ended up with my buddy.
Yep.
So he had a brokerage. I ended up with him.
Yeah.
And, like Seinfeld, I did the summer at gym. So I took the summer off because you're not going to get that again.
No.
I hung out with the kiddos by the pool. I did most of my mortgage.
Oh, yeah, you got a package because you had a real job then.
Oh, yeah, it was fantastic.
Those days are gone. You stopped working, the check stopped.
It was, we did not touch that package for a long time.
Okay.
Wait a minute, for legal report. Yeah, no, actually, don't, let's be careful. Hopefully the future shop people aren't watching.
Sure.
But yeah, I took a summer. I got my mortgage license. Had a great summer with the kids. Hung out with the wife. Did all those things.
Yep.
Had a wicked tan. And then when the kids went back to school, Dad started work. I started on day one.
So Jim, obviously you're a salesperson. I know that, but future shop sales was incoming sales.
Sure.
Okay. Now mortgage, you have to go get it. You have to meet the people, so forth, so on. Like you can be as smart as you are, but if you don't have clients, it's a moot point.
Yeah.
I don't know where I first met you, but it seemed like you're off and running at that point in time. Who taught you? Like, what was your formula?
Okay. So I'll start kind of at the beginning, and I'll explain. At first, I researched like crazy because I'm a sales guy. You got to know your product. So I'd take meetings with lenders. I'd read the little info sheets. Like I did mock mortgages. I went all in on that. And I don't ever want to take anything away from my old broker. Great guy. I asked a zillion questions, kind of figured out the product first. That was number one.
Yes.
But in terms of how I started working with realtors, because that's my gig. I work with realtors.
Correct.
It was by accident. And I'll explain. I actually thought I would get a lot of business from family and friends. That's what I thought. I thought people are going to flood to me. I got lots of Facebook friends. I'll shoot them all a little message. Like, that was my idea, right? And I'll put myself on park benches with a new headshot. So I had somebody take a bunch of headshots of me. I did that, by the way. I did all those things. But there was like a TSN turning point, and it came really fast. So I started first week of September, whenever the kids went back. And I remember my buddy, my best friend, reached out shortly thereafter. He's like, "Hey, can you help me with a mortgage?" He's like, "We've run into some debt." So I remember I did all this work. I kind of set it up for him. Like, yeah, we'll pay off this, pay off that. We'll put you with this lender. We'll do all these things. And he said, "Well, I got to check with my wife." And we waited. And a couple weeks went by. I said, "Hey, we're going to do it." And he said, "Oh, I'll get back to you." And then we had a guys' weekend. And there's four of us in a car driving up to Muskoka. He's in the back seat. And I lean back. And I said, "Hey," I said, "what's going on with this refinance? Should we pull the trigger?" And he goes, "Oh, we did it." And I said, "Oh." And exact same lender, exact same everything I had done. All my work. He went and did it with someone else, his financial planner. And actually at a higher interest rate.
Of course.
Because I was going to take care of him. He's a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
And I remember I was so mad. Like, we're heading up for this guy's weekend. I am so angry sitting in the front seat. I'm putting on, I'm putting on Rage Against the Machine. Yeah. Like, we're back in the 90s. I'm so mad. Everybody in the car, it's very tense. It's clear I'm pissed off. Jim's angry. Like, Jim's mad. And then I remember, it was probably 11 o'clock at night. We'd all consumed a fair amount of drink by that point. And finally, like, "Why didn't you use me?" Like, I was so upset. And he's like, and it came out. He's like, "My wife didn't want us sharing our T4s. And she was mad at me that I shared how much debt we have. And she was mad." And I kind of had an epiphany that night. I'm like, wait a minute. Friends and family, it's a little like, especially if you need a refinance, but it's very personal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to see your T4s. Yes. I'm going to see all those things.
Yes.
It's a little like, maybe you got to go see your doctor with something uncomfortable, and it's your buddy, right?
Yes.
Like, nobody's going to their buddy for an STD. I
like how you said uncomfortable.
Well, but to be very clear, I've never had an STD. I don't know what this is about. It's just an example, okay? Just to be very, very clear. Very clear.
Point taken.
But that's how getting a mortgage is. It's personal.
You're right.
And I went, you know what? I have to get out of the family and friends game. That's not where I'm going to get my business. So I got to get into something else. And I chose realtors.
Well, that's actually a perfect point, because I made the mistake before trying to get past too deep. The moment I can refer that off to somebody else.
Yep.
Tertiary that hasn't have anything, or secondary, which I don't know, one of the two, tertiary or secondary, whichever one you are. to have them look into it, then it just comes down to, okay, do you need to sell? Do you need to sell now?
Yep.
What's the bottom line? Does it make sense to do it for your family or not? So that makes a lot of sense. So you didn't get that deal.
Did not get that deal, no.
You didn't? Tell me about your first deal without getting too specific.
Oh, let me think. Yeah, I know. I remember it actually. It was. It was actually. It came peripherally. Actually, believe it or not, it was a miracle. It was one of the first ones I got. It was an old feed shop guy,
Yeah.
and he reached out about he'd purchased a house, and we did the mortgage, and it was awesome. Actually, to be honest, it went. My first deal wasn't as bumpy as you would think. Like,
Okay.
usually the first deal's bumpy.
Yes.
But it went pretty good. It went pretty smooth. I remember I drove out to his house. The only part which maybe was bumpy, I remember, he offered me a bunch of beers that night, and I drank a bunch of beers. That was bumpy. But the rest was pretty good. But I remember the early goings of the realtors. Yeah, I don't want to make light of it because I knew my stuff. I studied like a son of a gun. And I'll be honest, you probably find the same in your industry. I've always believed you put in an honest day's worth of work.
Correct.
And even when I had no work, I still worked. I was reading all about what lenders would do and what they wouldn't do. I was taking meetings with lenders. I was calling lenders. I was doing my little mock mortgages. I was researching like crazy.
Right.
Because I knew how to sell and I knew operations. And I figured if I could figure out the product, I'd be just fine.
So,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt. So,
No.
if obviously you know your product.
Yeah.
And I guess knowing your product helps you put together some sticky deals.
100%. Yeah.
So, outside of, I guess, your biggest deal, okay? Don't need to know it. Don't want to know it.
Sure.
Not in a,
Yeah,
don't want to
sure.
get in a jealous mode at this point in time. Outside of your biggest deal,
Yeah.
what was the one that you'd either found most interesting or most rewarding?
Oh, let me think. Oh, there was one last year actually, which is really cool. It was a pre-approval, which I did in 2019.
Okay.
2019
It's a
pre-approval.
ways back.
And we'd refresh this pre-approval multiple times. And me and these clients, we touch base like once every 4 months. Something, they'd ask me a question, I'd respond, we'd refresh pre-approval. Then we went through like a period where we didn't refresh the pre-approval because they were stopped looking. And they finally purchased last year.
Okay.
But it was a big one. Like it was a big mortgage. They bought more or less like a family compound. I think we started.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the first pre-approval they were going to buy something for. This is just off the top of my head, but off the top of my head, I think around $800,000.
Yes.
And we ended up in a $3 million home.
Wow.
Which is wild, eh? And that just shows you never know. Like it was a 5 years to get them to the finish line, and you just don't know. Like that's a long time. And 5 years later we got it, so it was awesome.
So service your clients, service your clients, service your clients, and know your stuff the whole way.
Yeah, you just got to know your stuff. I actually think I'm gonna say something which I'm gonna regret later. I actually think you just got to be really good at the basics. Because
Okay.
most people suck at the basics. They don't call people back. They don't email them back. They're not timely with things. They don't communicate. They're not friendly. They have something missing that's just basic in their game.
Right.
And I think if you do the basics extremely well, and that's where we've worked together. I like to think I do a good job of the basics. I'm going to call you back. If you call me, I'm calling you back. If you send me an email, I'm going to respond to you. I don't think it's hard to be really good. And then if the magic can be, in my world, that you know where to place a deal, and you stay on top of your game, then I think you're going to do fantastic. And honestly, I think it's the same in your world.
Yes.
I think people will tell me sometimes like, "Oh, the realtor won't go back to me," or this. I just think if you nail the basics so well, that's what people want.
That makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious. You seem to know what you're doing.
Sometimes.
But since when you started versus now,
Yeah.
is there something that you would have loved to share with younger Jim of, look into this, get after this. This might be missing in your toolbox.
Yeah, I think in the early going, I think I spent a lot of time doing the same thing 10 times over.
Okay.
And I'll use an example. Somebody would send me an email and say, "Hey, Jim, I'm looking for a mortgage." and I would write out that same email every time. I'd compose everything.
Right.
And as I've gotten more into this industry, I've figured out, I don't want to say automation because that's the wrong word, but I have figured out to be way more efficient.
It's the points you need to hit for everybody.
Yeah, so why write the same email 10 times if I kind of have a standard email, which I kind of...
You'll
tweak, right? Because everybody's a little different. But now that email takes 30 seconds to send instead of, me for 10 minutes mulling it over and writing all that out and kind of... I don't know why I did things like that. But this is part of operationalizing about your business, picking up efficiencies. The other thing is, this is going to sound crazy to you, but let's pretend somebody gets a deal today.
Yes.
I'll send them an email, and you've done mortgages, obviously. You got conditions, all your conditions. I bet you I've modified, it's kind of a generic email I send people with conditions, and I just delete the ones we don't need. But I think I've modified this thing. Like, my assistant makes jokes at me. I've probably modified it 500 times because I'm constantly tweaking it to make the wording just so that, people don't have to ask a question and they get it. Because I hate that. I love clear communication is really important to me. And I love when someone sends me something with very clear communication. So really one of my goals is, if I did your mortgage, obviously we're going to chat and do all those things.
Yes.
But if I'm like, I need ABC, I want to send you a message where you can read ABC and know exactly what the heck Jim wants. And that you're not going to send me something, you're not going to waste your time chasing something which which we don't need, or which is the wrong document.
And that's been ratified by people's questions back from that first email. You're like, that question should have been headed off
Darryl, I'm
before I
crazy.
received it back.
Like, there's something wrong with me, yeah. I work it backwards every time. Why did that person ask that question? I wasn't clear enough. Because I really think customer service, I think the definition of customer service is changing. I think people want things efficiently. I think people want things to go smoothly. Like, I'll use an example. Amazon might be my favorite company. You order something on Amazon, the next day this shady little van shows up and throws it on your porch, right? Like, it's in fact, the worst Amazon order is when they use Canada Post. When they use Canada Post, I'm like, oh God, here we go. They're going to say I'm not home. They're going to leave it at the box. Like, I'm going to go to the mall and have to go pick it up. But Amazon's got it down. Here's your package. It's your porch. You don't really speak to anyone. It's super easy. I love Amazon. Like, my wife clearly loves Amazon too, based on the amount of packages that come in.
True. And
based on the recycling bin every week. But I kind of think about this with even my own business. Like, I try and view it that I'm there to answer all the customers' questions, all my clients' questions, I should say. I'm there to help them make the right decisions, all those things. But everything else, I want to just be ticky-boo and nice and streamlined, that they don't feel that pain. It's as easy. The best feedback I can always get is when someone's like, well, that wasn't that bad. That was way easier than I thought it was going to be.
Right.
That's what I want.
That's when you've hit it.
That's when I've hit it. Those are the clients where I'm the most proud. And they're like, that's it? And they're asking me, they're like, you sure we're done the mortgage? I'm like, yeah, we're sure. Like, you're good.
It's
like,
over. It's good.
Your financing done. It's off to the lawyer. You're good. Yeah, I love that reaction because that's perfect to me. We've wowed them, right?
Well, okay, so hopefully this doesn't become redundant to that point, but you're successful, and with success, do you have horses yet?
No horses.
Okay, so you're not quite at horses. You're not quite at
not
horse
a horse
stage.
level, yeah.
Okay, so you're not quite horse level.
Horsepower level.
Horsepower level. Okay,
Yeah,
so
we'll get
the money's doing okay.
Horsepower level. Yeah.
But outside of the horse and horsepower level,
yeah,
I don't have my Bentley either. But I might bring on Don Travers and I'll try to get at his.
Sure.
But if outside of that, so outside the money, and am I missing something? Are there other things you find immensely rewarding about what you do?
Oh yeah. Like, and this is gonna sound so hokey. If somebody was to describe, like, I feel like two things. I feel like I'm perfectly built to do this career because it's everything I like to do. And my job, my job, if I think about it, I love talking to clients. I love the excitement of finding, because there's really two things I do. I either get them in a home, which is awesome. Like, think of how excited people are. Like, and they're nervous, they're scared shitless.
Right.
And I get to jump in there and offer some expert advice. I love it. Or they're in a tough spot, right? Lots of people call me about refinances. and I get to take them from kind of a bad position to a good position, or at least a better position. That feels great. So that's number one. I get to have those conversations. Number two, I actually do love a good checklist. Like there's something in my brain, it's the OCD in me, which is like, there's 10 things, let's get 10 things done, right? Like there's something about my brain which is, I find that immensely satisfying. Like there's, like in my world, there's something called broker complete. And what that means is a lender will say, hey, you're broker complete, which means you've done your job, there's nothing else to do. It's over to the lawyers, it's over to the title insurance company to transfer. It's over to somebody else other than you. Those two words, like borderline turn on. Like I'm very excited. When a lender's like broker complete in an email, I'm like, oh, thank God. Like,
so good.
And it's so nice to tell the client that too. Hey, Jim's not bugging you for any more documents. We're done. It's over the lawyer. I'm not going to bug you for your T4s anymore. I'm not asking for any more bank documents. You're just done.
Right.
I find that immensely satisfying. So that's kind of number two. I like working a checklist. And then number three is, kind of how you and I get along. I love networking. I love socializing. I like working with the realtors I work with. They're genuinely my friends. I love going out and taking a realtor for lunch. I love meeting them. I love speaking at events. Sign me up. So it's kind of three things which I love doing. And, if I talk about personal satisfaction, I mean, I can choose my own hours, so I work when I want to work. But I always say I'm also always working.
Right.
Right? And
right.
you're the same way.
Yes.
I can go to Mexico if I want tomorrow, but I also got to work in Mexico. That's the rules. So you're kind of always working, but if you love what you do,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter, right? Like
Or you wouldn't want your folks not getting information from somebody else anyways. That
No.
personally hurts you.
It's funny, like my wife, I remember last time we were in Mexico, she's like, doesn't it drive you crazy? Because I was answering a bunch of emails on the chair while ignoring the kids. And she's like, doesn't it bug you that you got to work? And I'm like, we're here in Mexico.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm not bugged. And secondly, I actually love what I do.
Right.
This is a young couple putting in an offer on a house. I remember it. I'm like, and I'm kind of giving them the green light. How
Go
great is
get it.
this?
Yeah.
How great is this? This isn't work. Like this is, this is fun. So.
I love that. Well, I've got the answer to stuff that I think I want to know. However, for you to say to other people in regards to mortgages, these are some things that people should know. I'd say the general public. I might know it, fair enough.
Yep.
But, Susie and Dan looking to buy their first house, or Susie and Dan looking to downsize, remortgage, cash out, whatever. What things should they know about the mortgage game?
What are we talking? Purchase or
Purchase anything that you run across that, somebody like, oh, I didn't know that.
Okay. Let me think. All right, I'll start with an easy one. I think credit. People pay way too much. People overcomplicate credit like crazy. Like it's nuts. Because I'll give a great example. I'll go to run someone's credit for a pre-approval, and they'll say, "Oh, can we not run it? Like, can we not run it today? Like, I'm worried about running my credit. I'm worried." When is there a more important time to run your credit? This is the entire reason. You know what I mean? Like
True.
this.
Yes.
This is why you have credit. It's for this. This is literally the moment.
Yes.
And you're like, no, please don't run it. I don't want to wreck it. Well, this is the whole reason you have it. But if I was to speak to credit, and I won't overcomplicate it, it's pay your bills every month. Just pay them. Just pay your bills. If you pay your bills and you keep your balances relatively low,
Yes.
you'll be just fine. You'll have wonderful credit. If you don't max out all your credit cards, you'll be just fine. Keep your payments low, or balances, I should say, and pay your bills every month. If you do those two things, you're going to have wonderful credit. And you're going to have way more than enough credit for me to go get you a house. Because I just find people overcomplicate it.
Or they're a little bit worried. They know they don't have the best credit, so they stick their head in the sand and it becomes worse.
Yeah, and it's not that bad. Oh, a quick side note, though. When it comes to credit, and I always like to share this with people, it's not what you have, it's what you use. So here's what I mean, it's not what you have. You don't have to go canceling your credit cards, or that's silly. Like, it's actually not what you have, it's just what you use. So if you pay off your your Visa because you had a high balance, you can still have a Visa. Just use it reasonably. Just keep it balance low. Still go for dinner, still pay it off monthly. Just do all your things.
Yes.
It's not what you have, it's just what you use. So that's kind of number one. I think credit gets really far overblown. Should I talk about down payment rules too?
If it's on your heart, I think we've got to that point of the conversation.
It speaks to me.
If it's on your heart, then we want to hear.
It does speak to me because people always confuse this, and the rules changed. So it's 5% of the first 500,000, so 25 grand, right? Okay. If you bought a $500,000 home. Then this changed. It went to 10% of the difference, up to 1.49999 million. Okay.
On the next.
By the way, this is wild.
On the next million.
So, if you think
that
about
changes.
it, if somebody buys something for 800,000, for example, they just need 25 grand to cover the first 500, and then they need 30,000 for the rest. They need a $55,000 down payment.
Correct.
That's not that bad. It's wild to me, by the way. The rules used to stop at $1 million, and now it's up to $1.5 million. So you're talking 125,000.
To buy 1.5 million.
I mean, you'll never qualify for that mortgage. If we're gonna be perfectly honest, like you'll never qualify for that mortgage. That's a hell of a big mortgage for a first-time home buyer.
Only certain people would want to.
Only certain people. You're working for Shopify or something. Give Jim Steffler Mortgages a call. But most people won't qualify for that. But it's still good to know.
Yes.
Because most people confuse the down payment. Once you go over, $1.5 million, you're 20% down.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that was one thing. Now, one thing that I've heard you say before, but I think it should be shared, is all variable mortgages are not
the same. Yeah.
So maybe just break that down for everybody, and then I think we've given our hot takes, because some people think I'm on a variable too, and that's the end of the conversation.
This is a great hot take, actually, and most people don't understand this. By the way, there's two types of variable. So there's something called an ARM, or an adjustable rate mortgage. That's a variable, and then there's a variable with a static payment, and they're both variable, but how they work is differently. So I'll explain. One variable, your payment remains the same. So Bank of Canada, if they adjust interest rates down, they go up, your payment won't move, stays the same.
Okay.
Won't move, okay? If rates go down, you just start paying off more of the mortgage. If rates go up, then you're paying off less in your mortgage. There's pros and cons to each. The pro being, really, if rates go up, your payment stays the same, so you can still afford to go to Swiss Chalet, and you can still afford to do all the things you want to do.
Until you hit the trigger point.
You're right. Then you hit a trigger. Well, we can talk about trigger point.
I don't think we have to.
We don't even need to go into that. Trigger point is just when you're paying way too much interest, then the bank has to quickly readjust. But the downfall of that is, I'll have clients call me today, and they'll say, "Hey, I've been paying my mortgage off for 5 years, but they haven't made much of a dent in their amortization, or into how long they have left to pay it off, because interest rates went up and their payment didn't change." Right. So that's one style. The other style is called an ARM, or adjustable rate mortgage. That's rates go up, your payment goes up. Rates go down, your payment goes down. Personally, I like this style better because, and I'll speak to the downfall first. Obviously, rates go up, your payment goes up. That sucks. But at least if you had a 25-year mortgage, at least in 5 years' time, you have a 20-year mortgage because you stayed right on pace, right?
Correct.
It might suck to absorb those extra, that extra on your payment, but at least you're still on track. But what I love is if it goes down, you can choose to do what you want to do with that money. Maybe you want to invest it because you're doing well in your investments. Maybe in times like now where I don't think interest rates are high, by the way, just to be very clear. But in times right now where they're higher than they were in 2021.
Sure, that's not hard.
Maybe you want to take that money and maybe you want to take your kids to Disney. And that's your choice. You can decide to do with the money what you want to do with the money. Just to give you an idea too. And this is where people get really confused. Your lender, and I'll plug myself, your lenders, which have a fixed payment, is TD, RBC, BMO, CIBC. So 4 of the big 5 banks.
That's all they do.
That's all they do. That's it. And people get confused by that. They want to. I get this call every week. Hey, I got a variable. Why is my payment not going down? Because you're with CIBC. Like that's the mortgage.
What they do.
Scotia offers both.
Okay.
But Scotia's mostly like an adjustable rate. And then there's a whole bunch of smaller lenders like First National and MCAP, these guys aren't small, by the way, but they're all out there, and they'll offer you an ARM. What I love about using a mortgage broker or mortgage agent, I get access to both.
Right.
We can have a good conversation and decide what's best. Because maybe a fixed payment's great. Maybe you're in awesome shape and you just want to pay off more of the mortgage. That's awesome.
It's true.
But maybe you do want to take the kids to Disney if rates ever go down, and that's a better route for you too. So most people don't know that, by the way.
Well, I think a lot of people didn't know a lot that you shared with us today.
Yeah.
And I hope you enjoyed this little chat that I had with the one and only Jim Steffler.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to have you back on again.
We got to do a part 2.
Okay.
We replace the coffee mugs with hard liquor, I'm thinking.
A hard liquor, okay. I might have access to that.
We have a full conversation. I think we see where that goes. But this was great. This is a lot of fun.
Absolute pleasure, Jim.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you
so
very
much.
much.